I just remember, like, even the costumes, putting them on and going, what are we doing right now? Like, some things that they make me put on, I was just like, what is this lobster suit that I'm wearing right now? I didn't even know Selena before that. I wasn't as into Spanish music as I am now. I didn't know much about her. I knew that a singer had been killed, and it was all over the news and things like that, and everybody was talking about it, but other than that, I didn't really know. I just go right back to the beginning of the movie and the first day of shooting and really trying to find the essence of who she was. I had done so much research and watched so much tape on her and listened to her voice and talked to her family. And it's like jumping off a cliff, right? You don't know what it's going to be like. It's the first time I had ever played a real-life person. She was an artist, and she was singing from the time she was 9 or 10 years old, maybe younger. And so that part of it, learning how she sang, all her mannerisms and how she danced, and she wasn't a trained dancer, she was just a natural performer. She was just a great performer. So studying the tape of her became really important.
The only way he will know that I am not going to give you up is if we go out and get married right now. Then he'll have to accept us.
It was daunting, but I remember just kind of jumping into it head first, and that first day everybody feeling really great, and it was just such a good feeling. Made in Manhattan was really tailor-made for me by my producing partner and the writers, and we made her from the Bronx. We made her, a lot of the language and stuff is stuff that I actually said and asked them if I could say and put in there. It was just very organic to who I truly was. And it all worked out really, really well. That's probably one of my favorite movies I've done.
There was a part of me that wanted to see what it felt like to have someone like you look at me the way you did just once.
Rafe was great. I think he was so used to doing kind of these serious films and the dramatic actor and all that kind of stuff, but he was so endearing and charming in this movie, and it was nice to see him bring his kind of acting chops to something like that. It just elevated the whole piece. Him, Bob Hoskins, Natasha Richardson. And there's another one where we had another amazing cast around me, and then where I felt like so lucky to be in that movie. Out of Sight. I just remember the trunk scene, kind of being locked in that trunk for a day and filming that, which was like a 7.5-page scene.
Yeah, you don't seem all that scared.
Of course I am.
You don't act like it.
What do you want me to do, scream? Wouldn't help much anyway. No, I'm just gonna sit here, take it easy, and wait for you to screw up.
I don't know, it was just kind of a style of movie at that time. It was crazy, and it just had this really specific feel to it. It kind of became like a cult classic, I think. It didn't get as much notice when it first came out at the box office, but now, years later, there's so many people like yourself who tell me that was their favorite film. It's crazy. Steven was one of the most kind of, I always say clever. I always think of clever when I think of him. I don't know why that word comes to my mind. He was just always right up on the camera. He didn't sit back at a monitor and watch. He watched the scenes close up. So if we were doing a scene right here, he'd be standing, sitting right where you were. Very in it, super witty. If Steven made another Ocean's film, I wouldn't mind if he called me up. Anaconda. It was an amazing cast. It was kind of this like sci-fi crazy monster movie.
Is snakes out there this big?
This skin is 3 or 4 years old. Whatever shed it has grown since then.
Snakes don't eat people.
John Voight and Eric Stoltz and Ice Cube and Owen Wilson, just a lot of great guys. We had a great time. We were down in Brazil for 4 months. We were glad it was a hit. That was a hit. Out of Sight wasn't. There you go. The Cell, Dr. Catherine. I remember doing that film, and Tarsem, the director, had he was such a visual director. He had such an idea of what these bizarre kind of images that he wanted to put in there, and kind of going inside the mind of a killer and what that would look like and what it would be like. And I just remember, like, even the costumes, putting them on and going, what are we doing right now? Like, who am I right now? He's like, we're inside the mind of the killer. And I was like, okay, great. Just trying to make everything feel like authentic and real, and that idea of going inside a killer's mind and how that changes you. I feel like who she is at the beginning and who she is at the end. Even in that last scene where she's by the car, her life is changed forever.
I came to help you.
You lie. Bitch. Whore.
You sound like your father.
It was intense, I think, more than anything. The wedding planner. I remember that, I wanted to make her super uptight, which is not how I am. I'm kind of more of a loose, streety type of girl, and she was so uptight and tightly wound. That's what I think of when I think of Mary Fiore, and not leaving room for fun or anything else besides work or love, but all of those things being kind of a protective defense mechanism so she wouldn't have to feel anything or be disappointed. Yeah, there was a lot of physical comedy in that film, and I hadn't really done much of it before, but I felt like I could do it, and it was so much fun. It's actually my favorite part of doing romantic comedies now, when there's a lot of physical stuff where you get to kind of, make a little bit of a fool of yourself. I love that part. Shades of Blue. I think in a TV series, you really get to live that character. And it's a whole different situation. And if it's an interesting character or a very flawed character, it really, really helps you examine yourself and your whole life. And I did it for 3 years. I played Harley Santos, and it was such a complicated, complex role. So many times I found myself kind of like, kind of going, okay, here's what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to do. They think I'm lying, but the audience doesn't know. I mean, it was super complicated, but really good. I mean, in a movie, you do the character and you're kind of done with it. With TV, if you get a great character, you get to live it, and she almost becomes like a part of you, like an alter ego. We talk about Harley like she was a person. You don't really do that with movies. It's like somebody like we're not going to see anymore. It was such a demanding role and a demanding series to do, and I do so many other things. So in that sense, I'm kind of relieved. But at the same time, it was such a great cast, and I enjoyed so working with Ray Liotta and the other people on the show. And he and I had such great respect and chemistry for each other that, those things are special moments. You don't have that with everybody. In Living Color. I auditioned for In Living Color in New York. They had a big open call, and they picked 3 girls to come and audition against the big open call over here. So I think it was just kind of like a gimmick. I don't think they thought they were going to find somebody from New York or whatever. Or maybe they did. But I didn't get it. And then it was down to me and one other girl. And then they gave it to the other girl. And then Keenan came back and said, we made a mistake. We want you. And I was like, oh, okay. But I didn't kind of believe him. And then, sure enough, made a deal. And I flew out and started living in L.A., which was a great environment to be around as my first kind of, taste of Hollywood and sets and all that kind of stuff. So it was, because I was a dancer up until then. So it was amazing.
First of all, we have a new fly girl coming all the way from Bronx, New York, Miss Jennifer Lopez.
They did their thing and we kind of did our thing, but it was nice to be around and watch all them working on their sketch comedy and all. Maybe that's where I got a little bit of my romantic comedy stuff from, just watching them be so fearless. Second act, Maya. I mean, Maya is very, again, like Made in Manhattan was something we produced and something that was tailor-made for me, whereas that was like somebody at the beginning of her life, right? This is somebody who's kind of like in her 40s and, wondering if she's just made mistakes and made the right choices and kind of beating herself up and not knowing if she deserves anything better than what she has, even though she's smart and talented and driven.
Well, I got you in the door. But you got the job, baby. Who's the champ? Let's go. Who's the champ?
I'm the champ?
You're the champ. Come on. All right.
It's not easy getting a job for a woman your age.
Watch me. Sometimes you just think, okay, maybe my life is meant to be this. And she's about to give up, and then her whole life changes. And it turned out to be a really touching, funny look at life. And I couldn't be prouder of the movie. I really love it.